Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and hit that bell button if you want to get notified of new videos. Thanks.
This is a Ducati Monster, and it is a 796. Ducati Monster 796 is a much more tame bike in a sense than the 1200, which is just kind of a complete beast. The power delivery on that 1200 is abrupt. When you get to this bike, it's actually a lot smoother, a lot more manageable. Still a very much of a powerhouse of a bike. The V-twin is just awesome. Love the wheels. Single-sided swing arm is beautiful. This exhaust is pretty interesting. At first I was sort of like, well, it looks kind of rudimentary. Not rudimentary, I don't know, industrial. It sounds amazing. We'll start it up in a second. Some little add-ons have been done to this, little red doodads and things, and beautiful red frame. I love the knee pads here. Those really help holding onto the bike. Little outline on the red rim stripe there. Really just overall a very beautiful bike. These come with a carbon fiber front fender. Nice touch. Carbon fiber rear cover for the seat. That's for the passenger seat. Just covers that over, makes it look a little more sporty. Of course, got the Ducati tank pad on it. And this one has custom grips on it, which are actually pretty cool. And then a Woodcraft top triple clamp adapter, so you can put on these type of bars. Brings the bars down a little bit instead of up. A bit more sporty. Got custom levers, adjustable. Let's listen to what this thing sounds like here. Well, let's get off this bike so you can hear it. That is the sound of that exhaust. Good sounding exhaust here. Sounds amazing. Really sounds amazing. Let's do a little parking lot exercise like we normally do. These V-twins tend to be a little bit more of a, they sort of chug at low speeds. You know, if you don't put up the kickstand, you kill the motor. And this one's a lot more manageable than the 1200. The 1200 is just so abrupt. It's not super friendly. This one tends to be a bit more friendly. Parking lots, I don't need to modulate the clutch. I can just do my U-turns, no problem. At slow speeds, you have to modulate the clutch. If I go too slow, then you start feeling that abruptness, or not abruptness, but the chug of the V-twin. Anyways, parking lot, it handles its, these, what do you call them, naked bikes tend to do pretty well. A short wheelbase. They handle quick turns really nicely. There's no fairing, so you get all the wind. But we'll go out on the country road and see what that's like. All right, let's give this one a little bit of a goosey. She sounds awesome. Is really geared very high, so I realized now I'm in 6th gear and this thing is just kind of loping along 70 miles an hour at 4,000 RPM. It just feels like it's geared, I mean, pretty high. I feel like I could be in 4th at 60 or 70 and it would just be fine. So I'm sure this thing gets pretty good fuel economy just cruising. Of course, at 55 in 6th gear, you really can feel the V-twin just sort of lope and that's at 3,000 RPM. That's pretty low revs. I think you can gear it down just a little bit. I like the Woodcraft bars. You know, it brings you forward just a little bit more on the bike. It seems a little more natural. Normally you're about here, so about almost 2 inches back, and about an inch higher with the regular bars. And with these, it feels a bit more natural, I think. I'd always thought on these bikes I'd want to put more of a dirt bike kind of handlebar on it because it'd be a bit farther forward, but then it wouldn't feel right. So with this, you've got the clip-ons, the angle's right, and you're just a bit farther forward. You're still pretty upright, so you know the regular clip-ons on a sport bike would be down here, about 3 inches lower than this, and so you're still pretty upright. Turns out I got a little bug inside my windscreen, so we're going to be stopping to fix that. Always love getting bugs inside your windscreen. I must have left it open a little bit. Let's see if I can get them out of there. Here we go. I know it's a little awkward. Anyways. The sound is awesome. That Ducati sound. And one thing I like about the 796 over the 1200 is just they've really made this bike smooth. It just makes it a lot easier to ride. The 1200, you know, it takes a few days to get used to that bike. And that abruptness, I mean, really, people will talk about getting off the throttle and that back pressure and how much that affects the bike. Like right now with this bike, it's not so bad, you know, so I can shift all the way down, let the clutch out easily, you know, quickly, and it doesn't really upset the bike that much. On the 1200 you do that, and you can almost break the back tire loose because it's got so much back pressure on it. But this bike, it's a lot smoother, it's a lot more balanced. It feels lighter, and I'm sure it is, but it just feels so light and nimble. It's a bit smaller of a package. Suspension's really good. You know, mention that the front suspension on this bike is not adjustable, but they really set it up good from the factory. The rear suspension is a bit adjustable, so you can adjust the preload on the rear suspension, and you can adjust the dampening on it. It's the compression dampening on this bike you can adjust. And actually, we got this bike in, the dampening was set up incorrect. It was almost all the way loose, so you get a little bit of a pogoing from the back of the bike. The stock setting is 8 clicks out from full stop, and it seems to be about right. You got about 16, so that's about halfway out. Well, it is halfway out. If you're doing track use or you're a little bit heavier, you can bring that in 1 or 2 clicks. But for street use, it seems to be just about right. Sometimes people get confused, like, what is this guy doing? Listen to that V-twin motor. Woo-hoo! I love love how that exhaust just sticks straight out the back. You can feel the wind coming out of the exhaust pipe when you stand behind it. And for such a short bike, this bike feels very planted. The suspension's really well sorted. That front end they've got just about right. So, you know, not having adjustability is always a concern, but you know, it's really set up quite well. I'd always wondered to myself, would I buy the 796 over the 1200? And when I was riding the 1200, I was thinking, oh, I don't know if I would. Now riding this bike, I would definitely buy this bike over the 1200. It's a more refined power than the 1200. And of course the 1200 is going to have a bit more, but at the sacrifice of being so abrupt, I know you can ride this bike faster. And just having it be smooth, that's really worth it. Now, one thing to mention about this bike, so it does go really well with a shorter rider. Shorter riders will feel really at home on this bike. It's a bit cramped. I'm 6 foot tall, and so when I ride this bike, I end up putting the heels, basically my heels are going right down to the foot peg instead of being up, and so I can end up scraping toes going through corners because I kind of forget that I'm setting my feet so far down on the pegs. But if I set them up where I normally ride, I'm pretty cramped for a 6 foot guy. But you know, you've got that room. If I'm just cruising around, I just set my feet down a bit further on the peg. My feet are flat on the ground when I stop, so a shorter rider is going to feel really at home on this bike. And cruising like this with my feet down, I'm not cramped to where my knees are going to cramp up or anything. And there are bikes like that where I get on them and I just can't ride for that long because my knees will get cramped. It's not that bad, so I don't want to give you guys the wrong idea. It's just that it is more cramped than, say, like the 1200. It seems the pegs seem to be a bit lower, or the seat may be a bit higher. Same on, say, like the Ducati and on the Z1000, the Triumphs. They have just a bit more room. On the Triumphs, the seats are a bit higher, and maybe that peg's just a little bit lower. Definitely could track this bike. If you wanted to do some weekend track days, it'd be right at home on the track. You can certainly play around with the gearing a little bit because it is geared really high. I think, you know, unless you're cruising at maybe 90 or 100, 6 gears almost useless. But hey, you could cruise at 90 or 100 and this thing would be just fine. See, I think I'm in 4th gear, 5th gear, 6th gear. Yeah, it's just lugging along under 3,000 RPM. Of course, you get good fuel economy like that. Maybe Ducati's bringing up their fuel economy rating. This one also has the bar end mirrors on it, and on this bike I actually am so used to it, and it just seems so natural. And it may have to do with the clip-ons, where I'm seated, the riding position, but it's just natural. When I look off to the side like I'm gonna look behind me, I just see those mirrors right away, and I can see everything behind me. It's absolutely perfect. And I don't normally say that. I normally think, hey, bar end mirrors, you know, it's just, you want to make it look like you don't have mirrors. This one, it works really well. Another nice aspect is, like, when you're cruising through traffic, you can just pop them in, and when you pop them back out, they go right back where they were. That's kind of nice. set it in the garage, put the mirrors back like that. Nobody's gonna knock them. Stick it back out. All done. I think we need to listen to that motor one more time. That exhaust is just awesome, man. It's that Ducati sound. Unless you got the right pipes on it. I want to say these are the right pipes. They sound good. Yep. That is the Ducati 796 Monster. Boom.